I'll just make sure it gets going here. Awesome. All right, so today I am really excited to introduce our guest speakers. We are joined by John and Linda Kort and Melona Biller, and we will be joined through video by Robyn Jensen, and they are from the Indian Head Museum, and they're going to be talking about why and how they interviewed Metis Knowledge Keepers and built a Metis exhibit in the museum, and also going to discuss the project, including partnerships. And so with that, I'm going to start it off with a video that they've asked me to share. So I'm just going to flip over to that. Okay.
At one point in our lives, we were half-breeds. And then the word Métis came out, or Metis, and we had no idea what that was. But we did know that we could speak Michif, and so we were Li Michif.
It's how you bring up your family, I guess. I don't know what it is.
They were one big family.
My grandkids makes me feel awful darn proud because it don't matter where I meet them, I get hugs and kisses. Woo!
Proud people, hard-working people. And I think that all of us were instilled, even though as a very young person, I didn't realize till I was like 35 years old that, hey, you need to be proud of who you are, and this is why. And I am, and we are.
Awesome. Okay. So with that, I will pass it over to, I believe, John and Linda to take it away.
Yeah, I'm Linda Kort, and I'll start by saying that I joined our museum board in 2010. So over 10 years, I've been serving on the museum board, and I've been, over the years, taken many courses offered by the Museums Association of Saskatchewan. And through those courses, they've given me many ideas and helpful advice and instruction. And one important one was to look at your museum for the stories that are missing. Now, our town, our area had always been a Métis area, but that was not reflected in our museum at all. Another thing I learned from these courses was to choose one goal. Dan came out and did a session with us and said, limit your goals. Take one and do it for 3 years. And of course, we also learned to collect stories and not stuff. So now John, and this is my husband, John, and we retired in 2014, and we were looking for something interesting to do. So we took a university course at University of Regina. It was on museums. First time the University of Regina had offered a course on museums. And for our final project for that class, we were to choose an artifact and research it and write a paper about it. So John chose a chair that was in our museum. It was a chair that was actually in the military building in our museum, and it had belonged to Gabriel Dumont in 1885, and it had been stolen from Gabriel Dumont's Batoche house just before the house was burned to the ground. And the chair had been stolen from a man who lived here in our town in 1885, and he had died and his wife had donated it to the museum. Now, Dumont's chair should not have been stolen, but it had been, and it was in our museum, stolen property in our museum. So John, because he had done this, his project on this chair, he took the chair and did a series of lectures. He took it to the high school in our town, and he told the story of the chair. And he asked the students if they were on a museum board, what should a museum do if they had property that had been stolen? So it was important, this story, but it was more important to tell the Métis story, more and more important. But how do we collect these stories? It became our goal, but 3 years of trying and we still hadn't had a breakthrough. Now, in January of 2018, we got a new rep from the town council. And I am so thankful that Armand was our new rep. Armand was a man who was raised here in town, and he is of Métis heritage, and he chose to serve the community by being on town council, and he chose the museum to be the thing that he would represent. So in March of that year, John and Armand met with Armand's uncle, who is Calvin Rissette, and also with Marg Friesen, who is the representative of Eastern Region 3, Métis Nation, Saskatchewan. And together, the four of them discussed what should be included in a Métis exhibit at the museum. So we were moving along, but we still needed to collect the stories, and we didn't know how to do that. Meanwhile, we had applied for a Culture Days grant. And this is not the Culture Days that we're going to be talking about, the one that you just saw the video from. That was 2019's Culture Days, but we were hoping to do a Métis Culture Days themed Culture Days the year before that, in 2018. So we organized it and we got partners to help us. So when you apply for a Culture Days Hub grant, you need partners. And so, so this is the poster that we put up asking for stories, which ended up resulting in 0 stories. We put it around town, and we were really trying hard for 3 years and nothing was happening until Armand joined the board. And so the next slide will show us, I think, our partners. So in 2018, we had a Culture Days, and we were hoping that we might possibly get 60 people out to participate. We really were worried that nobody would come. But what happened was, in fact, that we had more than 400 participants that year at our Culture Days weekend. That was Métis themed weekend. And we had a troupe come in to the Grand Theatre and perform a play called The Betrayal. It was about Gabriel Dumont coming back to Batoche as an old man. And Shelley Fayant from SaskCulture came to our Culture Days, and she wrote up the story. And it was in the Canadian Culture magazine. At that event, we actually took the Gabriel Dumont chair to the Grand Theatre. And after the troupe had finished the play, we told the story, and we said the museum would like to give this chair back to the Métis people. And Marg Friesen, as representative of the Métis Nation, Eastern Saskatchewan Region 3, accepted the chair and asked the museum to keep it in trust. And here's a picture of Marg Friesen is the first one. And then next to her is Melona Biller. And then is myself, and the last one in the back row is Robyn Jensen. We're missing her name on the list. And in the front is Sharona, who did the videotaping, and Sherry Huntley, who's also our treasurer on the museum board. So it was a real success, the 2018. And at that, it laid the foundation for the next year's Culture Days. And when I was on the Sask Culture website looking at I was filling out for the Culture Days grant, I happened to notice that there was a Métis Cultural Development Grant. So I approached our museum board and I said, we're still trying to get these stories and we're not having any success. So what if we were to apply for this grant and ask Metis Nation Saskatchewan Eastern Region 3 to be our partner, and then possibly we'd have the money to hire someone to do the videotaping and to get these stories. So that's what we did. We asked Metis Nation of Saskatchewan Eastern Region 3 to be our partners, and they were very interested in collecting the Métis stories on video, and we were successful in getting the grant. So this on the left, we were partnered with Metis Nation Saskatchewan Eastern Region 3, and we got the Métis Cultural Development Grant from Sask Culture. And so that began this project. And the partners that we have on our right, this was for the both the 2018 and the 2019 Culture Days Hub grant. We were partnered with the Grand Theatre, who gave us the use of their theatre absolutely free, and with the Indian Head Stage Left Players, who actually own the lights and the other the set design and that kind of thing to help the troupe in the 2018 Culture Days. And so these were our partners. Also, the town of Indian Head was helpful. We always get a grant every year from them, and we get our operating grant through the Sask Culture grant every year. We get that. And so so after 3 years of trying, we were so thankful that Armand joined the board, because Armand then asked his mother to join the board. And before long, we had quite a few new members, but now I would like to pass the presentation over to Armand's mother, Melona. Take it away, Melona.
Okay, I'll share my stories. I think, isn't this maybe where Robyn's video comes in?
Yes, okay. Robyn will tell first about her part in it.
Okay.
So Robyn Jensen couldn't be here today, so she recorded her section, and that's what we're going to hear now.
I'm getting that queued up right now. Okay, I'll pass it over to Robyn.
Hi everybody, my name is Robyn Jensen and I am a board member with the Indian Head Museum since January 2019. My role on the Métis documentary was one of I guess you could say, project manager. I was making sure that all the deadlines were being met, keeping communication lines open between our stakeholders, our knowledge keepers, and our committee. And it was a fantastic experience, I have to tell you. One of the stories I think I want to share with you today is about the music, about how we found the music for the documentary. And to tell you the truth, I had no idea how to start. I was looking online, I was looking, asking people, like, how can we get music for this? And so it was one day when I was kind of looking online, and I thought, well, maybe we could try contacting some local Métis musicians, Saskatchewan musicians. Maybe they would like to help. And the first person that came to mind was John Kort. And if you don't know John or his music, it's absolutely fantastic. He plays traditional Métis fiddle music. He plays his own compositions, and he's, been in Saskatchewan as a musician for many years. But he's very famous, and I thought, well, how are we going to, how is he going to react? Maybe he's too busy. I have no idea. So I found his website and I sent an email. I kept my expectations pretty low. And I thought, well, if he gets back to me in a couple weeks, because who knows, maybe he's traveling. I didn't know. But within a matter of hours, John's wife, Vicky, had responded back and said, yes, definitely, we want to collaborate with you. We want to help you. After I had sent her quite a detailed description of what the documentary was about. They were fantastic from the start, and they were so loving and accepting, and it really was reflective of what this whole project was about. I don't think there was one person that said no the entire time. Everyone wanted to make sure that these stories were told, that they become a part of our community, and that they're shared, and that people have the opportunity to learn about our knowledge keepers in Indian Head and the Qu'Appelle Valley. So John just was absolutely amazing, and we got to use some of his original compositions on the documentary. I'm so humbled, and it's just been amazing. And so that's the story that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much.
All right. There we go. And so I think now we will pass it over to Melona.
Hi, am I on?
You are on.
All right. I'm going to share my first experience. I'm going to share is how I came to be on the Museum Board of Indian Head. And like Linda said, my son Armand is on town council, and one of his duties is being on the museum board. And during one of his meetings, or lots of meetings, I guess, they were discussing how they were focusing on the Métis people for a project, because the Métis people are a big part of the history of Indian Head and presently. So Armand called me one day to see if he thought my brother, Calvin Rousset, would consider coming to a board meeting that he'd be invited to, and he could help them out with some of his knowledge. My brother Calvin has, at that point, was working for the Regina Public School Board as the, I'm not exactly sure, coordinator of the First Nations Métis unit. And his job was to go out and help teachers and do workshops and help students and teaching them and assisting them. So Armand phoned him, and he said yes, he would. So he came down and he met with some people from the museum, Marg Friesen from the Metis Nation of Saskatchewan, and Calvin. And so after their meeting was all over, whatever they discussed, my brother said to Armand, your mother would be a good board member. She knows a lot of things, but she just doesn't realize how much she knows. So he approached me and wondered if I would consider coming to the board. And I said, yeah, but he didn't say anything for a while, a couple months. And then he said, well, aren't you going to come? And I said, well, you mentioned it and that's it. So then he said, well, we want you to come. So I did. And I've been there since, and it's been a couple of years, and I really enjoy being on the board. It's been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot. So that was how I got on the board. And then the next story I want to share is how we got the interviews organized, because that was an experience in itself. So anyway, we were discussing how could we gather these stories from the Métis people, from people who were there was different ideas, and but we really like the oral history ideas. And we were talking about video clips, and wouldn't that be wonderful? A good idea to do that. And we had a lot of expertise. Like you can see that Robyn's very experienced in this kind of thing. So we were at this meeting. It was in January of 2019, and we were thinking, well, who could do these? And Sharona Lasky's name came up, and she is a young woman from Indian Head, and she grew up here. And Army just happened to have her on his phone as a friend, so he texted her and said, "Would you consider doing these videos?" Because she's a producer and she owns Crushed Rockets. She has her own production system, and she said yes, just like that. Yes. So there we were, still in this January meeting, and we had somebody to help us out with the videos. So then came, okay, how are we going to do the interviews? So immediately we set up a committee, and we met, and we weren't sure. Like Linda had said, that the posters didn't get any results. So we thought, well, what do we do? So we sat there and we brainstormed of Métis people who we thought might, that we knew all around in the area that might be interviewed. And so Marg Friesen and myself split the list, and we started calling people. And I was beginning to panic because there was a lot of no's at first. And I was feeling the pressure because there was deadlines with the grants, and Sharona had to be in California, in Los Angeles by a certain date. But anyway, we kept phoning, and we got the correct number we needed of yeses, and we were very happy. And so then we went and gave Sharona the numbers with the names, and she went from there. And very quickly, she set up interviews, and she met with the people, and it was wonderful. She got the job done, and then she went to California, and Robyn and her worked together quite closely, and I think Linda too. And she created the video clips, and she sent them up for us to look at, set them up, and we revised them. Like we looked at what we thought should be changed, and she did it, and they were finalized, and they got the job done. So they were used, and we celebrated Culture Days in Indian Head, focusing on the Métis and the display at the museum. And it was really a big weekend for us. And that was at the Grand Theatre. And there was a lot of things done then. We had we opened the museum, the display, the Métis display. We had at the theater, we had Crystal Peterson, a singer. We had a jigger teaching jigging. We had Métis weaver showing people how to finger weave. We had a traditional lunch served to everybody. And then we had the video presentation at the theater. And it went very well. And the third thing I wanted to share was the community reaction to all this. That the people's pride, in the Métis people's pride, was so great because everybody wanted to share the stories. And every Métis person came, well, why don't you ask me my story? You know, that came out. There were so many that wanted to help it. And the pride of being Métis, because of hearing all this wonderful history, it brought back lots to them. And you could just see the pride of the Métis people grow. And then the people from the community, they expressed their appreciation of how they didn't know this. And thank you for, teaching us that. Where they were very grateful for the knowledge they got at the Cultural Days that weekend. It was exciting to see the changes as the knowledge made changes, and the Knowledge Keeper DVD project had such a ripple effect too in the community and around, because we were told by different museums or different organizations that had made their own Metis Corner or Metis display. So that was nice. And we've had feedback from people from Ontario all the way to Vancouver. We had a young woman send us a letter about her grandmother telling her stories. Her grandmother was raised in Indian Head, and how the DVD affected her and brought it all together. And it was just really, really wonderful. So overall, it was a very successful project, and I'm sure it's going to keep going. So I guess that ends that until I talk about the other videos or the other screens.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And so now I am going to play a video from the Culture Days event for everyone here. So just give me 1 second and I'll get this queued up and ready to go.
I'd like to say, first of all, that the land we are on is the homeland of the Métis.
As the white man journeyed westward to the land of the Indian, a new race was created, a new nation rose up strong. Hardship as its destiny, and its curse to not belong. In the land from which they came, in the land they helped to build, they found themselves the alien, found their vision unfulfilled. And despite their valiant efforts to defend what they believed, when at last the battle ended, they were only left to grieve. We are proud to be Métis, watch a nation rise again, and never more forgotten people, we're the true Canadians. And for the newest generation and the future ones to come, with the past to motivate us, it will help to keep us strong.
Okay. I will pass it back to you, Melona.
All right.
There we go.
And this was our poster that we used for our Culture Days. And on there, you'll see that we had the 2 days. We had the DVD documentary premiere and at the theater. And we also had the opening of the grand opening of the Métis display in the museum on the second day. But it was just a tremendous, like it was, the theater was full house and there was a lot at the museum. It was a really good project that went well. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay.
And this is actually some of the pictures. And in the top left-hand corner is Derek Rousset. He is a teacher as a job, but is on the side, he does a lot of workshops with teaching jigging, and he has a real program that he gets everybody up, and he has kids, adults, everybody up jigging, and it's really a wonderful thing to see. And then in the middle at the top is Crystal Peterson, and she was the one who came, and she is a well-renowned Métis singer, and she did a very good job. And behind her is Virginia LaCroix. She is a local, and she teaches finger weaving patterns for us. And the kids just love it, and they go home, and even adults, look what I made, look what I made. It's really a good thing. And at the bottom is Calvin Rousset, and he was there. He is also sits on the Sask Cultural Board. So he's there representing Sask Culture. And then at the bottom right is 2 of our board members, and they're selling DVDs at the theater. That's Janine Moses Randall and Sherry Huntley. Thank you.
Okay. So believe we're going over back to John, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Em. I'll move to the center, move over that way, get to the center of the screen a little bit more. So there's a lot of exciting things that happened, but as a museum, we wanted to have some enduring record that we could have in the museum to show what we learned about Métis culture and Métis heritage. So that has two aspects. One is the museum display itself, and the other thing is the stories. The stories, we want to keep those stories and we want to show those stories and display them. So can we go to that slide?
You bet.
So in this slide, this is what we ended up with. And you don't see the full display here, but this is our Metis Corner. And the development of the display was really a collaborative event or project. In the picture, you see, and this was where our partnership with the Metis Nation really came in, because Marg Friesen, who is on the far left of this picture, she decided that it was a big enough event that she should make some special invitations. So the other four people in the slide are Verna and Glenn McCallum, and Glenn McCallum was the president. I don't know if he still is, but he's president of Metis Nation, Saskatchewan. And on the far right of the picture is their honors, Lieutenant Governor Russ Morasti and his wife Donna. And they came at Marg's invitation, and they came to help us open up the display, but they also came to the Grand Theater, and they were guests of honor at the big event at the Grand Theater. In the display, one thing I just wanted to point, I guess two things, is on the top right of that picture, you can see that there's something on the wall above Lieutenant Governor Morasti's head, and that is a video. So what we will be doing in the display is we'll actually be screening some of the stories that the Knowledge Keepers told us, and that will be screened as part of the display. The other thing is right in front of the Morastis and the McCallums is Gabrielle Dumont's chair. And can we just go to that video now, Em, please?
Yes, you bet.
This is just to show how this display came together.
All right. Hey, there we go. Nice.
So there, you see the whole display, it came together in about 20 seconds. So. No, but what I wanted to point out was there are a lot of people involved, and there are a lot of people going back and forth and saying, this thing should be over there and this thing should be over there, but we end up with a really attractive and very nice display that we're very proud of. Let me see. Could you go on to the next slide?
Yes, you bet.
Maybe this shows you the amount of work that went into it, and it really didn't happen in 20 seconds. It happened over the course of, I guess, 6 months by the time we started framing in a wall for the corner and then to completion. So it was a lot of work. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
So this is, there's a few things that got added, but on the left side, you see what the display really looks like, the top of it being the sky, And on the left side, it's barn board. So that's represents the outside of a typical Métis home. And then on the right side, it's the interior of a typical Métis home. And we had some really good collaboration by our local stonemason who helped stucco that wall on the right. But one thing that I learned from the museums course that Linda and I took is that to make a display interesting, it's nice to have a focal point or a theme point. And we decided that Gabrielle Dumont's chair is the thing we really want to focus on. And we want to tell the story of that chair and be very honest and open about what that chair is. So the research project that I had done about the chair is available as part of that display. I won't talk any further about it because Linda did. So can we go on to the next slide? Besides the display, the question of the interviews with the knowledge keepers is we ended up with a very nice DVD, but that DVD is about 36 minutes. And we actually did, Sharona did, over the course of the project with each Métis knowledge keeper about an hour of interviewing. So there's probably about 7 or 8 hours of interview time altogether. And we wanted to preserve all of that. So what I did was I got a program off the, I bought a program which was called, it's made by a company called Nuance, Nuance, and it's called Dragon. And what it allows you to do is just speak into the computer and it will type everything up. So what I was doing was listening to what the interviewees were saying and then repeating that into the computer. And so for each interview, we have the full interview with the transcript. And that will be part of our intangible cultural heritage. And it also becomes part of our archives system, our archival collection. We're also members of the Saskatchewan Council of Archives and Archivists. So we're making this, the videos and the transcripts part of our archival collection as well. I see we're just about getting to the end. So I just want to say what a great pleasure it was to go through those interviews that Sharona did. And there's a lot of stories that didn't end up in that 36-minute video. But so just for example, Shirley Baker, who is one of the interviewees, she told about when they were kids, they had a big old workhorse. And the workhorse loved to get in the water. And the kids would take this big old workhorse down to Lake Katepwa, they lived nearby, and it would stand up to its belly in the water. Then the kids would climb on the horse. I think they had a ladder. They climbed on the back of the horse, and then they would use that as a diving platform. And they dive into the water off this horse. And it just conjured up a picture of kids having a lot of fun. So there's a lot of stories like that in the interviews. Can we go on to the last slide, please? I think it's the last slide. Okay, so we really want to acknowledge our partnerships, but, and Linda told you about those partnerships. Can we go to the last slide then, the next one? Yeah. So we produced a video called Knowledge Keepers, and those are available from us at $15 a DVD. Also, if you wanted to, or alternatively, you could go to vimeo.com, where Robyn has put the video on Vimeo. So you can watch that 36-minute video directly on your computer. So that's all I got to say. Thank you very much. And I don't know, Em, we're at the 45-minute mark, so I'm not sure if we got time for questions or not, but turn it over to you, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Yeah, we definitely have some time for questions if anybody has questions. Okay, we've got a question from Cal there. I see he has his hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. very interesting. My mother grew up in the Indian Head area, and her first teaching job in about 1950 was at the Katepwa School. And she said all but two of the families she taught were Métis. And I remember some of the names that she would mention. Reset, definitely for sure. And Parisienne was another name I remember her mentioning. And I know she said while she was there, she would, and they thought it was quite unusual at the time, but she would actually go and visit with some of the students' families at their homes. She also said, and this is one of these little stories that you hear about every now and again, is that when they were bringing the van through to screen people for TB, they were not originally going to bring it to Katepwa School because they said, oh, it's all just Métis. And she had to actually do a fair bit of fighting to make sure that they brought the screening van down to her school. So.
Anybody have any other questions or comments for our presenters today? And I did put the link to the Vimeo video in the chat there. And I'm also just going to take a moment here and put the links of the things I was speaking of before in there as well, because I realized I had forgotten to do that. So we have a question from Ali Forand. While you were doing the interviews, did you pick up any tips for people doing oral interviewing for the first time? It's a good question.
I think mostly Sharona was the one who did the interviews. And so I don't know, Melona, do you have anything that you could offer for anyone who's doing oral?
I know that she had some preset questions to encourage the people to talk, but once they got talking, you know, like she asked about the different areas, you know, like maybe songs or do you have a special memory, things like that, and then people got talking, but she had a few, and I think you need to have that just to get people going on to talk. I just know how the Métis people, like some of them, some are natural talkers, like you saw with Maurice, how he was, but some, you know, you need a little pulling to get them going, but they did. And I think just like have a few preset questions, but nothing real technical, just very, very basic questions. And
I was going to say about Sharona, Maurice, I think, was one of the first ones that she interviewed, and he brought a family tree. And she looked at the family tree and her name, she was on the family tree. She hadn't known him beforehand, and she didn't know that she was related to him, but she was on his family tree. And that kind of like, she was a young person who really didn't know her Métis heritage. And these people were teaching her. I mean, it was nice that she was young, that she had this infectious kind of curiosity, and she really wanted to draw them out. But they wanted to tell her about her heritage. And I think that kind of dynamic was something that I certainly couldn't have duplicated. I think it was just a sort of a magical thing that happened with her and these people that she interviewed.
And I think the important thing in an interview is to let the person tell their story and to make sure they're comfortable, so not cutting them off and being open. Like when you're doing a TV interview, maybe for a news channel or something, you need to know very specific things. But when you're talking to somebody that you don't really know, you don't know what kind of stories they're going to tell. So just a few prompts and not too much interruption by the interviewer. Just let them talk, and you'd be amazed the kind of stories that come out.
Great, thank you.
I have a bit of a question. I was wondering if the museum what kind of plans you have for the future, Like, are you going to be continuing to do more oral histories? And the other thing that I wondered was if the museum would be trying to work with the schools in Indian Head because I'm sure there are lots of kids in the schools that have Métis heritage, and just like you were just saying, don't know what their story is. And so I was wondering if the museum is going to be working, what you're going to do in the future.
Well, I can speak to that one. I know that already, because of that summer that we did the DVDs, we also did some work at the museum for the summer programming for the day camp for the children. And my daughter came from the coast and she taught the kids how to make bannock, fried bread, at the museum in the summer programming. That was part of it. And then the school, because of that was in the paper, the school contacted me to go, and I taught every class in that elementary school about the Métis. I just went to the museum and I took a lot of things from the museum, from the Métis display. I asked permission, can I take some? And I took them and I just put them on the table and I talked about what I took. And I demonstrated with the sash how they used it as a tool and pulled things. And, if they got stuck, they pulled their card out using their sash. And I just talked about, I forget how many objects I took, about a dozen maybe. And I talked about what I could in the time with each class. And they loved it because I had this one lady tell my son, he said, her little boy came home and he said, I know where the sash came from. I know who made the sash. I know all the history. And she said, do you? And he was just hopping. And she said, yes. Where did the Métis sash come from? His mom said. He said, the Métis. That was his answer.
Perfect. Yes.
So it's going. It's rippling.
Yep. And that's the key, is to keep it moving forward and keep it with those kids, because they'll be so excited. That's so exciting.
I had fun that day. And I know that we were looking at more interviews because we had some people leave their names with us. And Armand, who's on the board, has volunteered to do the interviews. We just haven't had, because of COVID, anything like that carry on.
But we did buy a video camera this year, especially for the museum. It's similar to the one that Mass has for lending. So it's a nice high resolution camera. So we'll be using that.
I have something else I was going to say, is that at the 2018 Culture Days, we had the entire high school came to a performance, and we had to schedule a second performance just for them. But the high school social studies teacher had no knowledge that we had in town here, that we had a Metis Nation Saskatchewan Eastern Region 3 office. And it was through coming to the Culture Days presentation and through meeting with the museum's people that she realized that there was this place that she could go and ask for resources. And in fact, they had quite a lot of resources. So there's now a partnership between the high school teacher reaching out to Metis Nation Saskatchewan, and all because of our project. So that's another way that we've influenced the high school.
That's a great way of the museum facilitating those conversations and those partnerings with other groups. And then, like Melona said, it ripples out, goes beyond just the exhibit in the museum. It gets to throughout the community.
Awesome. We're probably coming up on the end of our time here, but does anybody else have any questions or comments for our presenters today? Let's keep an eye on the chat or for some raised hands, just for a moment. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything jump up here off the end here. So I'd really just like to say thank you so much to John and Linda and to Melona, and also to Robyn. Pass my thanks along to her as well. It was a really, really interesting presentation, and really, really great to hear about, you know, how the project evolved and how you have been able to incorporate all your work into your exhibition at your museum. And I've looked at the video, but now I think I'm going to go back and look at it with new eyes. So thank you for that. So just before we close, I just wanted to let you know, again, we will have another chat coming up on December 9th. That's Dan's going to be joining us to talk about the new museum catalog. And then that'll be our last chat before the new year. Our next one will be on January 6th, and we're going to be joined by a fellow named Ross, and he's from On This Spot. And On This Spot is a Canadian app developer, and they're going to be talking about using digital technology to turn your community into an interactive museum. It's a really neat app. I've had the chance to check it out a bit and chat with Ross, and yeah, it should be a great presentation. And yeah, thanks again for taking the time to join us. And if this recording should be posted by tomorrow, so if you want to share it with anybody, please go ahead and do so. It'll go out, it'll be posted on the community chat page on our website and on our YouTube channel. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.